meeting of the Granville County Board of Education to order for a work session, noticing that this is a special work session dealing with the state of emergency issued by the governor. So we're going to go through and check attendance to make sure that we do have a quorum. When I call your name, if you'll let us know that you're here. Obviously, I, Richardson, here. Mr. Peace?
Here.
Mr. Udy? Okay, he's not present. Dr. Houlihan?
Hello.
Miss Allred?
Here.
Mr. Rivers?
Here.
Dr. McKnight?
Here.
We also have Dr. McLean, Dr. Winborn, Dr. Myrick, Miss Day, Miss Pettaway. And do we have our attorney online yet?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Attorney Dubison is with us as well. Is there anybody else that has joined from the board? All right. We do have a quorum, so we'll proceed with our agenda. Mr. Peace, if you'll lead us in a time of invocation.
All right, let us bow. Father, as we meet to take care of the business of the Granville County school system, help us to do those things that's right and pleasing in your sight. Help us to keep our students, staff, and administration healthy and safe. Continue to guide us as we move through this following meeting. Amen.
Amen. Dr. McKnight, if you'll lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. And again, knowing that this is kind of an unprecedented way of handling a work session, but we felt like this is the best way for us with the information from the governor's office and CDC. So starting on our agenda, Dr. McLean, if you have a report for us.
Mr. Chair, if you don't mind, I am going to forego my superintendent's report this evening and stick with the report when it comes time for the presentation tonight.
That sounds perfect. Thank you. All right. Next on our agenda is our attorney will be advising us on 3.01, speaking about virtual meetings. There's some policy information here, and we will need to take action on this at the end of her presentation. So, Attorney Dubison?
Yes, and before I do that, I want to double check, Dr. McLean. I don't see that the live stream of this meeting has been published.
Let's see. Mr. Lawler is here, and he's checking right now.
Okay, just want to make sure the link gets posted wherever it needs to get posted.
He has all of our speakers on.
Well, the notice had said we would post a link on the website if people wanted to live stream the meeting, and I just checked and we haven't done that.
Yes, on our end, I think
it's not in the banner.
It's not in the banner.
If you go to About GCPS, Board of Education, Board Meetings Live.
So not in the banner, but if you go to About GPS, where we have board meetings, you should be able to see board meetings live.
Okay, I see it. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Kevin.
So, board members, speaking of electronic meetings, it is legally permissible to have them. Obviously, we're having one today. But you have a board policy that's a little more limiting and talks about remote participation, in cases of illness or unavailability. And so I recommend that during the duration of this emergency, that the board just take action to clarify that you want to waive any board policies that would limit your ability to meet remotely. With the understanding that we will continue to meet the open meetings law, which means providing public access and at least once a month providing public comment period, which, when the time comes for that, this is your second meeting this month, so you don't need to have public comment when the time does come for it, we will look at written public comment or, telephone public comment or something like that. So in any case, if you look on World Docs, I had put a suggested motion which reads, I move that the board waive any requirements in policy that limit board members from participating in board meetings remotely or place any barriers on electronic board meetings, with the understanding the board will continue to conduct required meetings and provide the public access to its meetings and avenues for public comment at regular meetings. This waiver will be in place for the duration of the state of emergency. And I just listed the policies that might be affected.
Okay. Does board members have questions for the attorney about that? Okay. Hearing none, we actually have a board member ready to make a motion. I want to recognize Dr. McKnight.
I move that the board waive any requirements and policies that limit board members from participating in board meetings remotely, or that place any barriers on electronic board meetings, with the understanding that the board will continue to conduct required meetings and provide the public access to its meetings and avenues for public comments at regular meetings. This waiver will be in place during the duration of the state of emergency.
Okay, so we have a motion from Dr. McKnight. Do I have a second from a board member?
Second. Peace.
That's a second by Mr. Peace. What further discussion or questions, board members, do you have concerning this waiver? Okay. Hearing none, if you're ready to vote, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, so that passes 6-0. All right. Attorney Dubison, anything else on virtual meetings?
No, not at this time. We'll certainly work with the staff to make sure that we continue to meet the open meetings requirement. And I understand that they are live streaming this meeting, the audio only.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for your help on that with the staff. All right, next we'll move to 3.02, the state of emergency and COVID-19 Governor's Order District Action. Dr. McLean?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, board members.
Good evening. Hello.
My goodness, I'm going to combine two reports in one this evening. And what I would like to do is to sort of bring us all up to speed before we jump into the reports from each of our departments. So if you will go with me, I think this background would be helpful. The staff has been working fearlessly and feverishly to stay on top of things that seem to be changing every 12 to 24 hours. That's about the kindest, most honest way I can put this. Things are just changing swiftly. So I think the way I will present it this evening is to present a timeline. This pandemic, this COVID-19 pandemic, has us taking action in uncharted territory. The week of March 9 through 13 had GCPS staff following recommendations from the Center for Disease Control, state and local health officials, and we refrained from closing schools at their recommendation. The CDC determined that gatherings of 50 or more people at that time should be avoided. As such, several district meetings were postponed. This past Friday, March 13th, GCPS continued following recommendations from the CDC as well as state and local health officials. The recommendation was not to close school all week, although there were rumors. Cabinet met on Friday. We discussed and shared departmental ideas and plans collectively. Board Chair Richardson was present for a portion of that dialogue, and our Child Nutrition Department, Technology, Maintenance, Finance, Human Resources, and Academics began planning. We're grateful we did, because on Saturday, March 14th at 4:30 p.m., there was a press conference held by our governor, and he announced that all North Carolina schools were to be closed for 2 weeks beginning on Monday, March 16th, today,
through March 30th. The order was twofold. First, it clarified that our schools were closed as instructional settings for students. That was first. And second, that there were to be no gatherings created or attended of 100 or more people. I spoke with both Board Chair Richardson and Attorney Duberson for assistance concerning the need for an emergency board meeting Monday night, that is tonight, due to the importance of the state of emergency in North Carolina, and we were facing changes in our district immediately. This required a new notice, a new agenda, and a board contact with a new communication mechanism to honor the health department's social distancing recommendation. So I thank all of you for this tonight. On Sunday at 3 p.m., I attended a statewide superintendent meeting held electronically, whereby we had over 500 people on the call. So as you know, that's more than just superintendents. Jeff Coltrane, advisor for the governor, Secretary Mandy Cohen with the State Health Department, Health and Human Services Department, Dr. Zach Moore, an epidemiologist, and Drs. Beverly Emery and David Stegall, both with the Department of Public Instruction, all spoke on the call. They talked about our need to encourage staff to honor the governor's order and how we had been provided yellow bus updates and relaxed some current bus restraints. They encouraged social distancing and encouraged districts to follow all of our children's needs and not focus on the laws or restraints. They emphasized using this week to plan for long term in case it is needed. They emphasized using this week to plan for long term and to focus on nutrition and child care. And finally, they talked about teleworking, and that is the new term for the day, teleworking, and simply keeping our students and staff safe. Our executive team met electronically last evening on developing plans and clarifying issues that Granville County Public Schools educators might need. Dr. Myrick arranged a time to meet with our academic team and principals late last evening. Our executive team did so and provided direction for this morning. Our principals were equipped with information they needed to get their school day started at 7:30 this morning, especially as it related to goals around teleworking, satellite sites for meals, and learning packets. This morning at 7:30 a.m., principals activated their academic preparedness plans and led the charge at their respective schools for the development of school and grade level specific materials. Dr. Myrick will be talking with you more about that this evening. The plan at this point is to have parents pick those materials up tomorrow, and later this week we will conduct some delivery of those materials, but we will also have web assignments available. The materials are supplemental in nature, and we will talk with you more about that. 8:30 a.m. this morning we held cabinet. At 9:30 the executive team met, and at 11 a.m. our child nutrition plan mobilized at 3 drive-through sites, Mount Energy, Cradle Elementary, and Butner STEM Middle. We had and are pleased to announce 68 pupils served at Mount Energy, 200 students served at Cradle Elementary, and 97 served at Butner STEM Middle. The program will look exactly the same tomorrow, but on Wednesday the program will expand, and Dr. Winborn will talk with you about the expansion tonight. We're excited about the number of buses we will strategically put on the road and how many meals we will be serving. We will also talk about what we will be doing for our medically fragile pupils in the district. At 1:30 p.m. today, our CC RISA held a conference call for superintendents, and we gained clarification on payment of classified individuals. That has been a hot topic all day. And at 4 p.m., we met with our central office staff, providing them with updates. So needless to say, the last 72 hours has been a bit of a roller coaster. What we have committed is to providing our district quality information. We will continue sending you, our board members, quality updates as well as we're getting it. But this evening, we thought we would take the time to give you information hot off the press in each of our respective areas. This concludes my report tonight, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you, Dr. McLean. Board members, do you have questions related specifically what she presented? I know that with the other areas, there'll be some questions as each assistant presents that. Okay. All right, seeing none, we're going to start going down our list and kind of breaking out the different departments and what our responses will be. Dr. Whitborn, I believe you're first with Child Nutrition, Human Resources, and Transportation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'll start with our efforts around child nutrition and expand on what Dr. McLean said. Today and tomorrow we will have 3 drive-through meal sites. And again, those are Butnerston Middle School, Mount Energy Elementary School, and C.G. Cradle Elementary School. Starting on Wednesday, we will expand those drive-through meal sites to, we're looking at 28 locations total throughout the county. That will include a number of school sites. I believe it's approximately 8 or 9 volunteer fire department sites, and then a number of community or neighborhood locations, including the housing authorities, trailer parks, and apartment complexes where we have large numbers of students living at the same location. There will be a total of 21, maybe even 22 school buses that will deliver those meals to these drive-through sites, and parents can come and collect a free meal, lunch, along with a breakfast for the following day for any child aged 2 to 18. The children do not need to be present. No documentation is required. No questions will be asked. If an adult pulls up and says, I have 6 children and I need 6 meals, we will give them 6 meals. No child will be denied food. In addition to our drive-through locations, we will also begin some door-to-door delivery service that will start on Wednesday. We are working with our schools to identify students who are particularly vulnerable. That includes our students with disabilities, our students who are medically fragile, our homeless students, and other students who our guidance counselors and principals have identified as being high need. And we will be delivering those lunches to their doors on a daily basis. All of these meals will be paid for through the summer feeding program. So the cost of the food will not be incurred by our school district. That's important to note. Are there any questions about child nutrition efforts so far?
Yes, I do. Can you email us the site, drive-through site?
Yes, sir, I absolutely will. We are finalizing that list actually this afternoon, and so I'll have a full list that will go out tomorrow morning, and I will get that. And we're going to be advertising that with local media, sending out phone calls, emails, putting it on our website, just broadcasting it however we can. I do not know if all sites will be up and running by Wednesday. That's going to be our effort, but we will publicize those sites that are ready once they are ready. But I will certainly send that to you, Mr. Peace.
I have a comment.
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to say that I am very proud of our school system for doing this. I've had a lot of people ask, what was the plan, and I think this is a wonderful solution, and I'm just very proud to be associated with that.
I second
Thank
that.
you.
I think it's terrific.
We thank you. We've worked really hard. And I'll let you in on a little something else. Most of you know my husband pastors, and another something that's come our way that another county is doing is serving dinner. So Miss Patricia is investigating restaurants in the community if they are interested in helping provide dinner. We can only provide either breakfast and a snack, or lunch and a snack, or lunch and a breakfast item. With the way the funds flow, there's stipulations. But if individuals or another company or restaurant would like to assist, this is where they can help. So she's investigating, and I'm going to put out there if they'd like to help provide dinner to some of our families, this is one way it can happen. And we're encouraging people to reach out to our child nutrition director because we would love to help organize something like that as well.
Thank you.
One question about it. Do you know if there's a menu of what they're serving for lunch, or is it the same type of thing child nutrition is for now?
I don't have that information at this time. I do know that Ms. Crute said that she's going to try to vary it as much as possible.
Okay.
But I will work on making that information available.
Okay.
All right. So for all of those efforts, of course, we will be using our yellow buses to deliver that. So our transportation department and our bus drivers and some of our other part-time hourly employees are going to assist with the distribution of those meals as well, because sometimes our part-time staff, they may be vulnerable right now in finding hours that they can earn. So we're going to be using everyone as much as possible in this effort to take care of our people. So next I'm going to transition to human resources. This has been a particularly tricky topic. Ms. Day and I and Mr. Perry and of course Dr. McLean, we've all been working on this, trying to seek guidance from the state. It seems to be changing quickly, but what we can say right now, and we've communicated to all staff as of this afternoon, is that this 2-week break in schooling, this suspension of instructional activities for students in our schools was not intended to be a vacation for our staff. Okay? The expectation from the state is that our employees continue to work. So we have asked staff to treat this much like they would a typical optional work day, and we are calling them work days. So in other words, everyone should be working or taking the appropriate leave with or without pay as they have available. Now, we have provided some guidance on recommendations to encourage eligible staff to telework. And I believe, board members, you should have also received that guidance via email that went out early this afternoon. But Ms. Day and Mr. Perry and some other finance staff members have reviewed all of our categories of employees and determined which ones are, eligible or able to telecommute. And so we provided some guidance on that. So principals and departmental supervisors will be working with staff on those plans during the next 2 weeks. But the bottom line is that as of today, this time period leading up to March 30th, all of our staff are working.
In fact, I'll add a statement. Superintendents have been trying to gain clarity on a lot of matters, but especially personnel. Because when you talk about money and payment, you've got to be very careful. Here is some guidance from DPI. The first bullet is this. The governor's executive order directs that public school facilities are to be closed as instructional settings, and they have the dates. The office has directed that these weekdays are to be designated as teacher workdays. That clarification alone was very helpful because not everyone heard it that way. What people heard was schools are closed for all of us. And the order was clear that this was closed for instruction for students. So we've had to make sure that that was clear. The second bullet is salaried employees will continue to be paid on their normal pay schedule. So we've had to make that very clear. The third bullet is local school boards, this is where you come in, can designate these days as mandatory or optional work days, but should attempt to allow teachers to work from home. That is where the language, what is the word, Dr. Winborn?
Telework.
Telework. That is where that language of telework. So it is a matter of whether you're working on site, answering questions from parents from these packets, the instructional learning packets, or being available to work with students, telecommuting, electronically, you're working. Or whether you're choosing to work in another way, or whether you're taking leave. So we've spent a lot of time today. I appreciate the team trying to clarify that. The next bullet, we may be very well transitioning to a model where we, in weeks from now, need to prepare ourselves to doing things differently. And we need to use this time to prepare for such. And this is the most guidance we've gotten thus far. So we then move right on into hourly employees. So that's why we're using general language of work days, just work days. And our board, if you're interested tonight into deeming, mandatory or optional or things of that nature, we're certainly here to follow your direction. But we've tried to remain generic and follow as much direction as we could get from seeking others across the state. So I just wanted to chime in with that. All right, your next category.
And this is Eva. If I could just note, board members, that one of the things we will be getting to is discussion of how you can give Dr. McLean the authority to make those calls about like mandatory, optional, as things become clear without having to call you back together every time. So we will discuss that later.
I have a question, too.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Dr. McLean, couple questions. Number one, and let's assume the best case that the schools are closed for 2 weeks, things get better, and we go back to school on March 30th. Right. Are these 2 weeks, are they going to be lopped off of the school year, or are we going to make these up? And my follow-on question is, if we end up making these up, then what is the financial burden as far as paying our teachers and our classified personnel for 2 extra weeks this year? How does that impact our budget, our fund balance, anything like that?
Mr. Rivers, we are right there with you. All of those questions swirled in our heads all night long. That's probably why you all saw things from me at 3 a.m. I just could not sleep. Here are a couple of, I'm going to give you the best answer we have today, and as I told you, things are just changing swiftly. I'm going to add something else to the table with your 2 questions, if you don't mind.
Sure.
We're not touching spring break for that very reason. We just don't know what we may need to do. So some people are asking, won't you tell us, is this going to count as spring break or not? And right now, we just don't have enough information. So we're trying to keep that off the table in case we need to use it. And right now, we don't have enough information to know that. So we're keeping that off the table. Ms. Day, what did we learn today in reference to Mr. Rivers' question? Because we got some good information.
Right. So, well, as far as from that state webinar that we did, they stated explicitly that teachers would not be required to work more than 215 days.
So no makeup.
So this is, I mean, that is our assumption from that. I mean, these days are not going to take the place of those 215 days, because that's how many days a 10-month employee is contracted for.
And I think
Well, this is Eva. I just want to interrupt. I assume they mean teachers are not going to work more without being paid more.
right.
I mean, I do want to note that the state is doing their best to give guidance, but only the legislature can actually answer those questions. Only the legislature can waive the calendar law, and ultimately it's going to have to be the legislature that addresses the source of funds. I expect that they will, and I think everyone expects that they will, but the governor's proclamation doesn't affect the school calendar law. He doesn't have the power to do that. So they will take it to the legislature, but until then there will be a lot of uncertainty.
Okay, so basically, I guess, to both my questions, the answer is we just don't know yet.
That's correct, Mr. Rivers.
Okay. And I appreciate the difficulty you all have in trying to make plans and all that. I wanted to echo what Ms. Allred and Dr. Houlihan said earlier. I'm sure every board member agrees. It's just been very impressive to see what you and your staff have done in the past 3 days in some very difficult circumstances, unprecedented. And so I just want to pass on my thanks and appreciation for all that you have done over this weekend. Very, very impressive.
We thank you. It's been an incredible team. But I'll tell you, I think I owe them some. I don't know what I owe them, but I feel like I owe them something.
Okay.
Dr. Winborn.
The only other updates I would add is with regard to our maintenance and custodial staff.
Yes.
They are focused on deep cleaning of our schools. And in fact, that's something that is really an all-hands-on-deck effort. In the event it is needed, we do have some professional services that are lined up, waiting. If we need to do any industrial fogging of our buildings or anything like that, as of yet, there's no reason to do that, but I just want to let you know that we do have that on standby. But our staff they're basically attacking the buildings and going to really, really clean every nook and cranny over the next few days.
Do you have anything for transportation?
Can I ask one more quick question, Dr. Winborn?
Yes, sir.
I just out of curiosity, and I'm just trying to understand the mechanism here. If we have had no cases in the county, then what is the necessity of the deep cleaning? It would seem like the deep cleaning would be necessary if we had a positive case. So can you see what I'm saying there? I mean, I'm not saying it's not a good idea, but I'm just trying to understand, do we want to shoot this bullet now or maybe wait until we possibly have a positive test result?
Well, I think it's largely...
Did I understand you to say that the deep cleaning was on standby and we weren't going to do it now?
Beg your pardon?
Did I understand saying to say the deep cleaning was on standby, that they weren't actually going to do the deep cleaning?
So what I said was that our custodians and our maintenance teams are going to focus on deep cleaning in the schools right now. And that's largely precautionary, and the fact that since all the children are out, it's just a wonderful time to clean our schools. Not just disinfect, but also just clean them. Cleaning windows and walls and everything else that they normally, it's difficult for them to have time to do. I did say that we have some industrial professionals on standby if we were to have any confirmed cases in any of our buildings. that we could have them come in and do industrial fogging and treatments of the campus. But that would only be in the event of a positive case. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. I just want to make sure because if there's, of course, we're all learning every day, but if we have no cases, then there shouldn't be any coronavirus in our schools. But if we do get cases, then there could be. So that's just what I'm trying to understand.
Yes, sir.
You know, one thing we've learned throughout this process is this thing, you know, we've had such a rough winter with the flu that just cleaning right now and getting those windows up and just trying to let our buildings breathe for a moment is probably not a bad thing. So we're just trying to do a little of that. And this company that is on retainer, you know, if something gets confirmed here, they know we're ready to rock and roll. We just wanted to have it lined up in the event they were needed. That's all.
Great. Thank you.
Yes.
I think the parents are going to appreciate that a whole lot.
It's sort of like my house, just to, you know, to lighten the load a little bit. It was kind of nice to clean up. I hadn't been home in so long, but I tell you what, I bet I got some cleaning in this weekend. It needed it.
Okay, any
So,
more questions?
Dr. McClain,
Yes.
you're basically, if we're listening to what you say, you all feel pretty good about your plans for the next 2 weeks?
Yes, sir. We do now. We certainly do.
Okay. All right. Just wanted to double check. We don't need to get in what's going to happen after 2 weeks, but I'm sure that you will have all those contingencies in your mind.
You've got it. I feel really comfortable with our plan for 2 weeks.
Well, you know, here. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, sir. Go right ahead.
Now, I was just going to say, and of course, who knows what, but there's a story in the breaking news thing of the News and Observer that folks have done, and I'm not sure who it is, have done a prediction, and it shows that by April the 29th, there will be 4,000 cases in North Carolina. Now, that's a prediction, but clearly we all know it's going to go up. So it's going to be a fun. I wish you all the best. I think we all do. But bottom line is that you feel good about what's going on for the next 2 weeks.
Dr. McClain, one of the concerns, the questions I have has to do with testing. And I don't know, or do anybody know if there has been any testing done in Granville County?
Well, yes. I mean, I can tell you from the point of view of knowing our medical offices are doing testing. Personally, what I have experienced and seen is they will test for the flu first. If it's negative, then they will do a chest x-ray. If it's negative, then they move to the COVID testing, is the protocol that's being suggested right now. But there has been testing done in Granville.
I'm asking the question because we don't have any assurance that there is no case really in Granville County now.
Yeah, we're kind of waiting. I know that there was quite a bit of testing done at the end of last week and this weekend. It takes 2 to 3 days to get those back. So it's one of those, just like other counties, you're just kind of having to wait and see. And that's the reason why today, doing the board meeting the way we are, is going through each of our departments to be able to make sure we have a contingency for the 2 weeks, but then to know that our team is planning past that just in case.
All right, okay.
All right, so we're going to move forward with Dr. Myrick's academic and instructional update and tell us what we're doing to keep learning going.
Good afternoon, good evening, Chair and board members. Today, our principals spent the day, along with their teachers, putting together supplemental packets for students to work on for over the next 2 weeks. I have included in board docs a sample of what we sent to the principals, and I just wanted to bring your attention to just some of the parameters that we that we put on for each packet. With our supplemental packets, these will not be packets that contain any new learning. The packets will contain test prep materials as well as things that the students should know and just need some practice on. We also have made available to all of our schools various online links and resources that they have shared out with principals, or that they have shared out with their parents. And we've also made provisions for our students who do not have internet access at home or do not have a device. Pickup sites will be tomorrow between 11 a.m. and 7 p.m. at each individual school. The students can go by and pick those packets up, or the parents, if they have internet access and a device at home, can feel free to download the packets or work with them directly online. These packets are designed to continue the learning, to keep children engaged. One of the primary things that we're asking all of our students to do is to spend 20 minutes a day reading. Excuse me, that goes along with our Vision 2020. So we definitely want to keep that in the forefront of our students. And so we feel very good about this work. We spent last week working on the packets, and then only to go back on Sunday afternoon, we spent tweaking everything that we have put together, because we have put packets together in hopes that school will be in place today, but we went back and did some tweaking and kind of worked with what we had. And so the team spent about 3 hours yesterday going over that information and getting everything ready for the principals this morning. And so the principals, like I said, they have been working with their staffs today. We have a link where they are submitting all of their packets to us, and they will be pushed out on our websites, each school's website, as well as on our social media platforms, so that parents will have access to those documents. We've been getting lots of free information and free things from some of our vendors that we have used throughout the district, as well as some of the vendors that want our business. For an example, in our middle school, we use a vendor called News ELA, and they have now given us the professional usage throughout all of our schools, K-12. And so we have many schools who have been using that service, using a free version of that service, but they have given us full access for all of our schools. So that is just one example of how that is going. We've also received information from Time Warner Cable about allowing access to families. There are some things that families would need to consider if that happens. For example, there is a connectivity fee charge, and if parents or families have had access or used that service before, and there's a back payment, that payment would need to be paid before they can access the service, and you have to live within that service area, that service delivery area. And I will go on to say, because things changed so quickly for us from last week, from what we finalized, what we thought we finalized on Friday, to what we had to spend our Sunday doing, we spent today working on a what-if plan. And so we have spent, when I say today, we've probably spent all day today working on that what-if plan that we are ready for. And we'll start working with some teachers tomorrow to talk about what some online learning would look like for those teachers who have never taught online, and also providing some professional development for some online tools that we have that some of our teachers don't necessarily use in their classrooms.
All right. Before we take questions for that, at the request of Dr. Myrick, I'm asking the academic committee, which consists of Mr. Peace, Dr. Houlihan, and Dr. McKnight, if you could make yourself available tomorrow at 1 o'clock for a teleconference call with him to go over some more in-depth plans from the academic team. I will have him send out some information to you this evening after the meeting on how best to connect with that. So that academic committee will meet tomorrow at 1 o'clock by telephone, and you'll get that information. Does anybody have any academic questions for Dr. Myrick?
I do.
Okay.
Dr. Myrick mentioned the kids who do not have access to internet can you expand a little bit on how those children will be able to continue learning over the 2 weeks?
Yes, ma'am. Each school has prepared packets of information, hard copies of information that families can pick up from the school tomorrow between 11 and 7. And if they're not able to get there tomorrow between 11 and 7, they will need to contact the school and set up a time when they can get by to pick those packets up for their children.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? As we said earlier, this is the interim plan for the 2 weeks. After that, Dr. Myrick's team through this time will be working on what it'll look like to deliver instruction on a more case-by-case basis if this continues.
Mr. Richardson, may I add a little something?
Yes, ma'am.
Board members, I'd like to add, Dr. Myrick's team has done an incredible job of sort of serving as the place to put everything in one location so that schools could pick and choose what they needed for their children. And that's been powerful as I've talked with superintendents across the state. That's where most people regarding central offices have been using their time, because all of our schools are different and the resources and the interests are different. But I'll tell you what we're talking about moving forward. We've not solidified any of the plans, but Ms. Lynn, your question sort of takes us there. So I want to share just a little bit. I don't think that's where we stop. I think that's the tip of the iceberg, and Dr. Myrick's team has already begun some work. Someone asked a moment ago, what about transportation? Well, here's where transportation comes into play. We're talking, and we're just in the talking and infancy stages of this, but depending on how long this thing goes on, we may have to take school to the community instead of the community coming to us. And that simply might have to be the way we look at this. So we've begun the dialogue about putting computers on our buses. You know how that book bus goes out and goes around? Well, we may have to, keeping in mind the social distancing, we can't pack the buses, there's no way to do that, but keeping in mind social distancing, we may have to select some campuses, and we may have to have preset times for grade levels, and we may have to get some laptops on some buses in communities so that children could report to those campuses and use hotspots on those buses for internet and Wi-Fi access. So just wanted to plant that seed with you as a board that we have begun the conversation, and we are trying to think differently and look ahead and to think out of the box. We couldn't pull all of that off for the 2-week period we have because we don't know if we need to go that far yet. But as soon as we know a little bit more, there are some conversations we're ready to dig into. So just FYI.
Okay. Ms. Day, our financial impacts.
Thank you, Mr. Richardson, board members. We've already talked about some of these things. This is kind of where there's a lot of questions associated with what the financial impacts will be. Some of the issues that, and we've already spoken of a couple of these, but as Mr. Rivers brought up before, staff payroll costs without students. Will these student days be made up, and what that effect on the budget would be? And of course, as our attorney has said, we don't know. We don't know the answers to those. Transportation and child nutrition costs associated with meal pickup sites. So as Dr. Winborn mentioned, the food is provided by the summer feeding program, but this is a cost associated with the transportation and the child nutrition employment. But this is a way that we are able to keep some of our employees working during this time period, those running those buses and the child nutrition, people working in the child nutrition department. Also, we have some grant funding is based on student attendance, such as the NC Pre-K program. We got news just this afternoon that we would be receiving our funding for NC Pre-K for the month of March. although we are not having that many student days in the month of March. But some of our funding is based on student attendance, and so that is a consideration. Also, the copier costs and the paper costs for our packets that we're distributing to our students and parents. And another cost that we're incurring is software license for teleworking to maintain continuity of services during this time period. But those are just some of the things, some of the impacts, but I don't have answers for you, unfortunately, about what those dollars are. And I don't know, I do have we have gotten very little guidance today from the financial services, the DPI. We do have a conference call in the morning at 9 o'clock. So I'm hoping to learn more about what this might look like. But as our attorney said, some of that is legislative action, and until that happens, we won't really know about funding.
Okay. Not that there is much you can answer, but any questions, board members? Okay. All right. So now we'll move to the last portion, and this also will need action. So this is emergency policy waiver, superintendent's authority. Our board attorney will be walking us through this with some information and some recommendations.
Thank you. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, ma'am.
Sure.
Okay, great. I've talked to Dr. McLean about this a couple of days ago, and of course it became necessary faster than we expected. On something that a lot of districts are doing that I recommend you consider is having the board vote to authorize the superintendent to take action specifically related to the emergency without holding a board meeting. There are some things that may need to be done that normally would require board action. The most obvious one is changing the calendar. The state right now has to some extent done it for us, but as events unfold, giving her the authority to designate optional versus mandatory work days, your policies on remote working, things like that. And so what we have here on board docs is a language that would, if you move and adopt it, and it can be changed, that says that the Board of Education authorizes Superintendent McLean, in consultation with the county health department and state health officials, to take any lawful action and to temporarily waive board policies as necessary in response to potential risks associated with the coronavirus, with the understanding that the superintendent would continue to keep the board informed of such action. And of course, this is not to say you won't have meetings, but would give her the authority to act between meetings. So I'm happy to answer questions about what that might be. Obviously, one of them was the authority to close schools. That decision's now been made, but I can see that other normal policies and practices may need to be waived on short notice.
Ava, can you give us examples? I mean, we already know about school closings, but give us some examples of where that authority would be used.
Sure. So right now the board adopts the school calendar, and anytime there are changes to it, like even when you have a weather event and you change a workday from temporary to optional, from optional to mandatory, that's usually something that requires board approval. And as you could see this week already, there wasn't time for that. So that's the most immediate consequence. I think personnel policies related to who's completing which duties and the work day. You have specific policies about what the work day is for certain categories of employees, and those are things that might need to be fudged. Fudge is not the right word. Please don't put that in the minutes.
That's an interesting word.
That might need to be altered on a temporary basis.
Eva, I think I'd be more comfortable with that, doing it in consultation with our chair and vice chair. I certainly wouldn't want to go at that alone.
And that's fine.
I think the reason why I'm raising that is that, and I think, Dr. McLean, your idea about in consultation with the chair, it's a good idea because I don't want you to go out and do something and then somebody gets mad about it and it's just, it's all your fault kind of thing. We obviously don't know what that would be, or it probably wouldn't be anything, but I just think that you shouldn't be left out there to make some decisions that some people are not going to like all by yourself.
Thank you, Dr. McLean. I agree.
This is Leonard Peace. I agree with what Tom just said. The only thing that I would add would be I would feel more comfortable if all the board members agreed to this, because we are going to have to depend on superintendent and the board chair's decisions, and I don't want board members to go out and say, "Well, I didn't agree for them to do that."
Yeah, exactly.
I agree too,
Yeah.
Mr.
So we need to be all on board in order for this to work.
Okay.
That's
Well,
right.
I think
I agree with 100% with the statement 100%. If you add the chair, so that the superintendent and the chair can make those decisions, and everybody on board, whether it might be something that somebody don't necessarily like, but they need to keep it to themselves when we do this.
Mm-hmm.
I think we have a board member, Dr. McKnight's ready to make a motion to that effect, and so we're going to allow him to make that motion. If it gains a second, we'll have a little bit further discussion before we vote. Dr. McKnight?
Okay. I move that the Granville County Board of Education authorize the Superintendent McLean, in consultation with the board chair and with the county health department and state health officials, to take any lawful action and to temporarily waive board policies as necessary in response to potential risks associated with the coronavirus, with the understanding that the superintendent will continue to keep the board informed of any such actions.
Okay.
Second.
I'm sorry, sir.
I second the motion.
Okay. So we have a motion by Dr. McKnight and a second by Mr. Peace. What further discussion, board, do you want to have?
Is there a time period on this? Is this just when schools are closed?
It was during the state of emergency declared by the governor. I thought that was in there.
We can clarify that during the state of emergency if you just want to note that in the minutes. I think the way it was written was just risks associated with this virus, but certainly during the state of emergency would make sense.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Dr. McKnight, Mr. Peace, are you okay with that amendment to your motion?
I am.
Yes.
Okay. All right. What further questions, discussion do you have? Okay. All right. So you've heard from a board member that he would feel more comfortable if this is a unanimous decision. So again, we do need to take a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, so that's 6-0. That does pass unanimously, and so that'll go into effect covering the decisions already made and moving forward during the declared state of emergency. Attorney Dubison, do you have anything else to add to that piece?
I don't. Not to that piece, no. I think, as you know, as you can tell, the staff is getting constant updates. The state is obviously sort of building this bridge as they walk across it, as we all are, and so we're all living with a lot of uncertainty, which people are very uncomfortable with. But my hope is that in the next 2 to 3 days, that at least some of that will be sorted.
All right, board members, if you have your agenda in front of you, there are some dates there to remember. We do want to remind you that instructional walkthroughs that were scheduled for tomorrow obviously are canceled. There is nothing to walk through. And also, we have temporarily canceled the Direction of Public Education North Carolina collaboration meeting for the 23rd. At this point, we have left everything else intact on our calendar, and you will get further updates as those become aware, more than likely next week, as we get a little bit closer as far as other meetings, instructional walkthroughs, and the board meeting coming up on the 6th. So at this time, Dr. McLean, do you have anything else to add?
No, sir.
All right. Board members, do you have anything else to add?
I have a question.
Okay. Ms. Lynn?
When you were talking about teleworking earlier, can you give me, not having a teaching background, I'm not really sure what that would entail.
Teleworking. That's a good question. We try to find that as making yourself available if needed for anything for the job, pertinent to the job. At this point, I sort of liken it to what my husband is doing, where he typically would go into doctor's offices and have conversations and answer questions and do things, or my daughter at Cisco would answer the phone while she was sitting at work. They've all been home doing this. So ours is now the same. I guess it's a new term for working at home, so that people are not in the same vicinity. One way that can be measured is with these packets or web work, with the web work children have. They should be able, if contacted by students and or parents, to answer immediately. That's one way we know whether people are teleworking. If I begin getting emails, or the principal begins getting emails, well, Mrs. Such and Such hasn't responded, then that's a sure way of knowing maybe Mrs. Such and Such is not teleworking. If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and my second question is, once schools reopen, it seems to me that these younger kids especially are going to need a lot of support at home from their parents or their grandparents to keep them up to speed. The ones that don't have that at home, when they come back, is there going to be a remediation period to catch those kids up? Or have we not got that far yet?
We've talked about that just a little bit, but we have not made any definitive decisions on that just yet. Right.
I think that was in part why the first 2 weeks, and frankly, a lot of districts are doing this. They are not receiving new work. They're not receiving new exposure or exposure to new material. So they're getting ready for their tests. And I must say, while we were sitting here, I just got an email, and one of the questions happens to be, are we still having EOGs and EOCs? And that's a real question. But they're getting preparatory work based on if they're going to maybe have tests. So here's some test prep, here's some review, here's what you should have gotten, but also some higher leverage work for those who can handle it. So there are options there that teachers could put together based on who the children are. Is that a good way to put it, Dr. Byron?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a quick question.
Yes, sir.
This is Dr. Winburn. Stan, are we still having the drug prevention meeting with the principals tomorrow at 9:30, or is that postponed?
I would recommend that we postpone that in light of what's going on right now. Our principals
And that's fine, I understand. I had assumed it probably would be. I just have not seen anything.
Yes, sir. You're correct. I haven't sent anything out yet, but I will tonight.
Okay, I would like to have that meeting, but obviously, whenever you think it's most appropriate. You're you're very good at figuring that out, so I'll defer to you on that.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Any further?
Got it. Board members, are there any meetings or is there anything that comes to mind that we've maybe omitted on the dates to remember that you'd like for us to make sure we leave on the radar? We've just been so swamped. I'll be very honest. We could have very easily forgotten something.
The one question I had was tonight's the major focus before the emergency. One of the major focuses for tonight was the your midterm review. Mr. Richardson, what about that? I don't want to be unfair to Dr. McLean, but I mean maybe I don't know. With the emergency, do we just not do that this year, or what's the plan for that?
I think what the plan is those three topics we were supposed to talk about tonight, we're going to evaluate next week when it comes time to start working on the agenda for the April board meeting to see if those are things that we want to include in April. Two reasons we did not do that tonight was this was the main focus. This is what we needed to handle and deal with tonight. But also, if you remember, by law, we cannot hold closed session items remotely, and that does need to be a closed session item. So we do need to wait until we're back in person, and then we will make some arrangements for that. It may look a little differently because we are a little further in the year by that point, but we'll also have some very good leadership tasks to talk about at that point. But we definitely will keep that on the radar to reschedule that.
Okay, good. Thank you. And that makes sense with the closed session, obviously. I just didn't want Dr. McLean to have us, make sure that how we're supposed to work this out, that it's all done, so she doesn't miss a milestone or whatever.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Board members, are there any other questions?
I'm sorry, I've got one more.
Okay, no worries.
This has more to do with the community than it does the students or the teachers. It seems to me that there's a lot of members, well, not a lot, but there are several members of the community that might not understand where some of these decisions are coming from. And I want to make sure that the members of the community understand that the Board of Education did not cancel the high school athletics, and the Board of Education did not close the schools. And I just want to make sure that the right message is out there that, some of these decisions we're making, but some of these we are not. So I didn't know how that could be better communicated with the public. And I don't know if anybody else shares my concern, but I just wanted to throw that out there.
So I do know that the phone calls and the emails that you're getting are also being forwarded to the press. Am I correct about that, Dr. Winborn?
We have been clearly communicating. Everything that goes out to our families has been sent out to the local press as well. All of those.
As we were starting tonight, we were able to see a really good piece in the Butner-Creemore News that's talking about our meal delivery service that we're doing. And so I think you're right. I think it's probably up to us as board members now as well, making sure people have those right answers, but utilizing the information that Dr. Winborn's given us, and hopefully the press will pick up on those things that we're attempting to do for the best of children.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any further questions? All right. If not, just want to remind Academic Committee, you will be getting information from Dr. Myrick about your meeting tomorrow. If you'll be on the lookout to be able to get updates from Dr. McLean as they happen, and at least trying to keep you updated with what we're doing. Staff, anything further from you?
No, sir.
Okay. If not, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn tonight, if somebody's willing to make that a motion.
So moved.
All right. A motion by Dr. Houlihan. I need a second.
Second.
A second by Dr. McKnight. And all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. All those opposed? All right. So we are adjourned at 7:08 thank you for your time tonight. Again, please make sure that you're being safe because you are on the front lines of it as well. And please keep in contact with us if you need something to support students during this time. I want to thank you for your time, and staff, thank you so much for your incredible work you're doing. I was able to spend a few moments with a couple of the teams today, and they are just working very hard. They're making you proud. So thank y'all for that. All right, and with that, we will finish up, and everyone have a